Hi, welcome to Semiconductor Geopolitics Taiwan's View. This is the 6th episode of our second series, the Cross-Strait series, and also the last episode. In this episode, we would like to ask one question, kind of a prediction. Can China's semiconductor industry in the future develop smoothly and become stronger? The premise of this question is that, as everyone knows, the United States has been suppressing China since the Trump administration in 2018. The terms tariff war, trade war, tech war, and chip war have all been widely circulated. We believe that this is a struggle for technological dominance between the two major powers. How can we consider the so-called strengthening of the semiconductor industry? We can first examine it using the national goals that the Chinese Communist Party government itself set publicly in 2015.
好，中国呢，在8年前定出了一个很宏伟的目标，叫做“中国制造2025”，其中有一个 KPI 就是中国晶片的自主自给率要达到70%。2025很快，明年就到了可是呢，目前推估它的晶片自主自给率呢，只能不到20%。
One characteristic of the Cold War is one Earth, two camps. The United States strategy, or at least the Biden administration strategy, is to recruit allies to suppress China's development. Among these, their most important ally in the semiconductor field is Japan.
非常に政治的にも重点を置いています。で、技術の進化を加速をさせています。ただ、半導体はですね、精緻な製造装置とか、それから高性能の材料がないとできないわけですね。つまりその設計から製造量産までを一気通貫で行うためには、それらの機器と技術者の機器や材料のラインナップとそれを支える技術者が全部ラインナップで揃っていなければならないと。それはですね、中国は現状ではメシンリングの部分がたくさんありますから、そう簡単には追いつけないと思います。ですから、先進国、半導体先進国にとってはですね、技術流出管理、ということを徹底的にやっていかなければならないと思います。
As for China, of course, it has not given up. Cold War 2.0 has just begun, hasn't it? So, they must keep finding ways to make their own chips. The problem is that the US has suppressed China in technology fields and mainly semiconductors repeatedly. On October 7, 2022, the US Department of Commerce, Bureau of Industry and Security, or BIS, issued the most detailed EAR, Export Administration Regulations, restricting China's semiconductor industry. 1 year later, on October 17th last year, the BIS issued a supplementary restriction to fill the previous loopholes. Coupled with the various other measures against China, it became an extremely rigorous and comprehensive technical containment.
我们都知道，美国卡住了它的脖子，卡住了什么？设备、材料跟人才，尤其在先进制程上。所以中国呢，很明显，它在发展半导体的过程中，恐怕在先进制程会受到限制。所以未来它一定是全力的切入成熟制程。
在高端的逻辑芯片上面受的影响比较大，汽车芯片、一般的家用的芯片，甚至存储器上面受到的影响相对的少。
Technically, does China have any way to deal with this?
在半导体这个行业里头除了硬件以外，很多是软件，我们叫 firmware 放进去的。这种方面呢，大陆的优势相当的明显。有的时候硬件不见得比人家快，但是加上软件，它的灵活度算法上面的先进程度，做出来的结果一点不输比它更先进，硬件上面更先进的。
In fact, there is more than one technical path to break through the US technological blockade, to combine several low-end chips to achieve the functions and the efficiency of a high-end chip. Although this is not perfect, it can still satisfy some application demands.
这叫 chiplet 的做法。一个5奈米的，它的功能很好，速度也很快，
是
功耗低。
是，
但是14纳米的功能没那么高，但是你一个用2颗或者3颗做同样的事情呢，这个速度是差不多的，只是功耗高，所以在手机上面这个方法不太合用，但 PC 上面就已经可以了，在汽车芯片上面这更是没有问题。电动汽车，这个储能的电非常多，用3颗14纳米的跟1颗5纳米比起来，消耗电呢也不会超过它1公里的这个电量，所以相当是可以的。
When crucial industries are trying to achieve breakthroughs without external help, can China be self-reliant and strengthen itself? What should it do specifically, and what will happen?
就是因为美国的极限的施压，所以他反而把很大的资源一块放在这个政策上。这最近几年的话，资本的话其实对半导体的话非常的追逐，所以也造成了很大的内卷。所以现在做半导体，不管做设备、做晶片、做材料，都很内卷。那内卷的话，就会让它竞争就更激烈，然后会做得更快。
大陆追得很快，因为它在成熟制程28纳米以上的，它几乎现在这个很多厂都在盖，所以这个成熟市场的将来就非常的有竞争力。
这个产业是它的命脉啦，它绝对不会不给钱的。好，那当然中间我觉得会有很多的浪费，这个从过去很多案例都可以看见，一定有非常多资源的浪费，除非它整个经济崩溃了，它没有资源再去支援这个产业，否则我觉得它是会继续发展的。
Just because they have a strong will to catch up, that does not mean they will catch up soon. The comprehensive sanctions imposed by the US will have a definite effect.
你现在没有办法从市场上，从国际市场上去买到你想要的一些技术资源啊，所以尤其是敏感的东西，全部都要自己开发，所以它这个整个产业发展的速度，它一定会变慢。
To be able to manufacture chips, you must first have equipment. In the past, in addition to developing and making equipment on its own, China also purchased a large amount of second-hand equipment from various countries, including Taiwan, to refurbish. Those emerging local semiconductor equipment manufacturers could not compete with the first-class manufacturers from the US and Japan. However, the US sanctions forced major foreign manufacturers to withdraw from the China market, which in turn eliminated the pressure on local Chinese manufacturers from strong overseas competitors.
所以从2019年开始，我们就制定了战略，开始进入到全新装备的研发和制造。那从2022年开始，我们已经彻底的转变掉，二手翻新业务已经停掉了。所以从2020年到2024年，我们的业务基本上持续是每年都有大幅的增长，而且是2位数以上的。
The protagonists of Cold War 2.0 are the United States and China, and the rest of the world is their battlefield. Even under extreme pressure, China has not slowed down its ambition or pace of outward development, and its product and equipment continue to compete in international markets.
关于中国芯片的出海的话，其实它有2个层面。第一个就是我们的产品首先要卖出去，比方说我们的小米手机要卖出去，然后小米手机里面用了大量的国产芯片。对，当然核心的芯片还是高通的那个 SoC。对，但是里面其他的边边角角的，比方说像模拟芯片啦，像很多 MEMS 芯片啦，其实都已经有了非常多的国产化的公司在做。对，这个是国产芯片跟随整机产品出海的一个例子。那除了手机还有汽车，另外一个的话就是我们的这个芯片公司要在海外的一些市场和地区去 建立工厂、建立产能，要做好在地化的工作。
作为一个中国的半导体设备制造公司，可以考虑到海外去分得一杯羹，因为我们也做了一些详细的这个了解和分析。其实了解到海外不同地区对半导体装备是有不一样的需求的，其实还是存在大量的机会的。所以我们从去年年底就开始做了相应的规划。从去年的销售情况来看，我们也取得了一部分的这个业绩。今年的话，我们会做更深入的全球的海外市场的一些布局和开发。
但是大陆它有其他的新的市场，譬如说“一带一路”，很多国家生意做得很好，东南亚对大陆也是很友善的，生意也做得很好，甚至非洲大陆做的更多，中东也很好，还有就是南美洲也很好，北美洲是受很多的限制，澳洲都不见得限制那么多，所以打压别人呢，并不见得真的把人家打倒。
When we evaluate the effectiveness of the US suppression of China's semiconductor industry, one factor which is often overlooked is that China's political and economic system is quite different from that of the US or other capitalist economies. Semiconductor companies in the Western world must be very profitable in order to reinvest in R&D of new technologies, to launch new products, and to make more profit. Otherwise, they will easily be swept away by the rapidly changing technology market. Chinese semiconductor companies are different.
非常赚钱是一个非常关键的条件。大陆的经济体制它没有这个限制条件了，它只要能够赚一点钱，它已经很棒了。它甚至也不需要赚钱，它如果技术上能够把产品做出来，而这个产品能够找得到出路，这个出路可以由它自己内部去创造嘛。所以我就觉得说，它的效率确实会变低，但它那个产业会发展成一个比较有自己可控，然后可以比较长久的发展的可能性啊，反而是比以前更高。
Whether the US wants to stay ahead, Taiwan wants to develop, Japan wants to revive, or China wants to catch up. Regarding the semiconductor industry, we have mentioned in previous episodes that in addition to funds, policies, and markets, there's one more and most critical factor: talent. China, which has led the world in population for many years, may have some advantages in this area.
大陆有39所的985大学，然后有77所的211大学。去年的话，它的毕业生的人的话，大概是1123万。这毕业生里面，我们算40%是学理工的啊，大概也将近500万。那500万的话，我们抓一个最顶尖的10%，那有50万。那我们再扣除他可能会出国的，那现在大概出国的大概就10万。那是因为美国的话，现在禁止中国大陆的 STEM 的学生去美国深造，所以他们现在去美国的意愿其实越来越低。所以我们算一算，就是每年大概有40万的理工科顶尖的毕业大学生，他要发展这个高科技，相对来讲人才是资源非常大。
Finally, there's another point. Semiconductors or chips are only components of hardware. The real goal of the competition between the US and China is actually cutting-edge applications based on those advanced chips, especially applications that have a significant impact on national defense technology, such as drones. In this field, artificial intelligence is a must-win strategic high ground for the two great powers.
中国大陆的 AI 某种程度上啦，无论是发展基础研究也好，或者应用研究等等那些，乃至到商业化，规模是相当大，跟美国不相上下，甚至在专利或者是你科学上的 paper 的涉论里面，都是超越美国。
The development of AI can be driven forward by the actual demand for its applications. This demand can also drive the subsector of IC design in the semiconductor industry. This is what is happening in China too.
为什么会出现所谓 AI PC、AI notebook、AI 手机，就是它要跟硬体绑在一起，这样子的话，在 AI 上面的 application 的效率会更高。这个 AI 在中国里面既然发展那么速度那么快，去运用那么大，那自然是跟它 IC design 这一块是有很大的一些帮助。
However, even if the most advanced artificial intelligence chips can be successfully designed, they still must be manufactured to achieve real applications. See, this returns to the US' current main strategic goal of restricting Chinese semiconductors, suppressing China's large-scale production of advanced chips. And advanced chip manufacturing is Taiwan's strongest point. The complex geopolitical relationships in the semiconductor industry between the US and China, the US and Japan, the US and Taiwan, Japan and Taiwan, and cross-strait relations are the themes discussed in the previous 2 series. You are welcome to check out our previous episodes. So, after all, does China's semiconductor industry have a chance to break through the US technological blockade?
那现在因为美国给他这么大的一个等于是制裁或打压嘛，我觉得反而会逼他走上一个我觉得其实可能比较适合他的模式，也就是说他是垂直整合的模式，说不定他会从这个战争里面呢因祸得福吧。
Maybe, maybe not. But the views discussed here are limited to the semiconductor industry. The future development of the US-China tech war has too many variables and involves a wide range of other factors, so it is difficult to predict. For example, as we work on this series, we are entering the climax of the US presidential election, and the surprises keep on coming. Maybe regardless of who comes to power in the US administration in the future, the main theme of the US-China struggle for hegemony will not change. Cold War 2.0 may continue and semiconductor geopolitics may remain the focus of our attention. If you enjoy our program, please like and hit that subscribe button. There are a lot of wonderful programs on this channel, Taiwan Plus. Hope to see you again soon.